Hi, parents. I just wanted to go over multiplication strategies, specifically equal groups and arrays, because these tend to be the strategies that kids use to help them solve problems until they memorize those multiplication facts. Right now, when we're doing equal groups and arrays, the order of your numbers matter. So with equal groups, the factors in the equations, they have a very important meaning and they have to be in the correct order. So 3 times 5. When we're drawing equal groups, that multiplication symbol stands for groups of. So another way that kids can read that math equation is saying 3 groups of 5. When I am drawing equal groups, my picture has to match my equation. So my first number tells me how many groups I need to draw. To show groups, what I do is draw a large circle that I can draw dots inside of later. So since my first number is 3, I'm going to draw 3 circles or 3 groups. I'm going to read that equation again in my mind, 3 groups of 5. That second number lets you know how many dots you should place inside each of these groups. I like to show my dots in the same way that you would see them on a pair of dice. So in each of these, the first, second, and third group, I have 5 dots. That's what multiplication is. It's representing a scenario that is being repeated or happening over and over again. So 3 groups of 5 I have represented here. To find my answer or my product, the kids are going to hear me say both of those terms. I go back and count every single dot. And this is why I want to work on kids memorizing their facts because it's so easy to mess up counting. A lot of my kids are off by one number, and I have to count that incorrect. I have a lot of kids that say, oh, 3 times 5 equals 14, and that's not correct. So I have to count them off. I love seeing their work because I can see exactly if they're messing up on drawing a picture or if they're simply messing up on counting. So 3 times 5, my product, if I go back and count all of those dots, would be 15. Kids are also going to need to be able to recognize which equation matches a picture. So here I have groups, and I have the same number of dots in each of those. So this would be a multiplication problem because something is being repeated over and over again. I need to write an equation to match this picture. Your numbers have to be in the correct order. So I'm going to first count my groups. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. So 4 is my first number. I know I am multiplying because the same thing is being repeated over and over again. And the number that's being repeated over and over again is 3. In every single group, I have 3 dots. So I would say 4 groups of 3. And to find my product or my answer, I go back and count every single dot. So 4 groups of 3 is equal to 12. If a student wrote the answer 3 times 4, I have to count them incorrect. I know I'm not a fan of this rule either, but I have to teach it across the board, the same as my co-teachers, same across the state. That is the expectation for the third grade. They have to match the equation to the picture. If they wrote 3 times 4 for this picture, again, it would be incorrect because the picture wouldn't match. 3 groups of 4 would look like 1, 2, 3 groups with 4 dots inside each one. Again, I know that's frustrating. I know they have the same answer, but when there is a picture involved, it has to match the equation. I personally like equal groups the best because it's easier to see visually for the kids. They can count the dots easier. One thing that I try and stress with them is drawing big enough groups so they can see all of the dots inside. That's one thing that some kids mess up on. I'll see kids draw groups like this big and they go and try and squeeze all the dots inside, and sometimes their dots end up kind of merging together and it makes it hard to count. So that's why I have them draw bigger groups. Another strategy that some kids like are arrays. They are going to be asked to draw an array to represent a multiplication equation. And they are going to see arrays and have to write an equation to match it. It's not my favorite strategy because it can get really messy. Again, since there's going to be a picture involved, your numbers have to be in the correct order and your picture has to match your equation. So when you're doing arrays, an array is simply a picture that has the same number of dots in each row and in each column. So I can say, instead of saying 6 times 2, I can read it as 6 rows of 2. Your rows go sideways, and I told my kids to think about how when you row across a river, you're rowing side to side. When you row a boat, you're not going to row and start going up in the air or down under the water. You row side to side. So 6 times 2, I need to have 6 rows of 2 dots. I start by drawing row leaders. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These dots are going up and down, so technically this is a column, but they are the start of each of my rows. I do this because a lot of my kids in the past, they've kept going even past 6 rows. So I do this as a reminder that I need to stop at this point. I don't need any more rows than 6. I'm going to go back and add dots to each of these rows. I need a total of 2 dots in each row. If I go back to the first row, there's already a dot there. I just need to add one more. So I have one row of 2 dots. My second row needs another dot. So now I have 2 rows of 2 dots, 3 rows of 2, 4 rows of 2, 5 rows of 2, 6 rows of 2. To find my product or to find my total, I would add up all of those dots or count up all those dots. If I drew 2 rows of 6 dots, again, I'm going to start with my row leaders and go back and add 6 dots to each one. So this is 2 rows of 6. My first row, there's already 1 dot, 2 dots, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do the same thing for the second row. There's already 1 dot, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, I know that your product or your answer is the same. 6 times 2 and 2 times 6 both equal 12, but your pictures are different. They have to match the picture. And on your test, on the kids test, they're going to have an array and they have to create an equation to match. So we have practiced with this in class. First things first is count your rows. I like to number them to keep me focused on the problem. So out to the side, I write numbers next to each row. Here's 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4, 5, 6, 7. The number of rows that you have is your first number in your equation. To find your second number, go back and count the dots that are in one row. So I have 7 rows of 3 dots. And to find my answer, I go back and count every single dot. The reason why arrays are difficult for some kids is because as they're drawing their arrays, sometimes it can get sloppy, the dots kind of get close together, the rows start to slant, and it's hard to see which row the dots are on. Graph paper helps with this strategy, so if your kid is leaning towards using this strategy to help them solve multiplication problems, graph paper is a great solution to keep their rows in line. I hope this helps clear some things up.